back, everybody, to the Miami Marlins franchise here on MLB The Show 23. Today's a pretty big episode as we will be going through the trade deadline here in season number 1. And along with that, we will be finding out the overall ratings and potentials of our draft picks and also going through the early portion of August. We've made it through the All-Star break. The team has not gotten off to a great start here in the second half of the season. We're currently 4 games under 500, 51-55. And I think any realistic shot of a wild card berth is probably not going to happen, with a lot of teams in the National League fighting for those playoff spots. Now, we're not going to just roll over and die and not be competitive these last 2 months, but I think we will prioritize selling players here at this trade deadline, trying to potentially add some prospects. But that doesn't mean we won't be looking to see if we can make upgrades to the roster as well. The American League also has a lot of teams fighting for playoff spots, and with there being 6 teams per league making the postseason, I think there are going to be more teams looking to buy, meaning the market for some of these players who we're going to be selling could be rather big, because a lot of teams might want them. We've been banged up throughout the second half of the year. Obviously, Jazz Chisholm has been out since the middle of June, and without him, the offense has been, well, not the same. He will be back within the next few days, but even so, I don't think he individually can turn this team from below average into like a playoff team or something. We do have some older players who are producing at a pretty high level this year, so there's no reason to think we can't add some good prospects into the farm system for those guys. And our farm system should be getting better by default today once we find out the ratings and potentials of the guys in our draft class. There are some pretty solid players on the trade block who are available, and there have been some pretty big trades throughout the major league landscape throughout the season. Just yesterday, the Giants and Reds swapped Elly De La Cruz and Kyle Harrison. 2 of the 15 best prospects in baseball just swapped for each other. Going into today, I was planning on targeting Reds third base prospect Cam Collier, but with them trading De La Cruz, it's pretty clear that Collier is the long-term guy for them at third base, so that kind of threw a monkey wrench into my plans. There have been plenty of other big moves as well. Lane Thomas to Chicago, Jorge Mateo to Seattle, Austin Hayes swapped for Gavin Williams, Jake McCarthy for Lucas Giolito is a fascinating one. Giolito was on the trade block, and we talked about him as a guy who could be a target for us, and Jake McCarthy is a good player as well. Even throughout the month of July, Eric Lauer swapped for Drew Gilbert. We've obviously made some moves, trading away Yuli Gurriel to the Giants, and Joey Wendell being swapped for Keston Hiura. Andrew McCutchen was traded for Elliot Ramos earlier in the month. Seems like a middle finger from the Pirates to McCutchen. One of the biggest trades was Stephen Kwan to the Mets for Kodai Senga and Kevin Parada, 2 big-time players going to Cleveland. Elijah Green was traded for a bag of chips. That seems pretty stupid by the Nationals. O'Neal Cruz was traded to the Dodgers for Bobby Miller and Alex Vesia. I don't really get that deal for Pittsburgh, although Bobby Miller is an awesome pitching prospect and Alex Vesia is good too. But still, that's O'Neal Cruz, who is now added to an already loaded Dodgers lineup. So as we take a look at our budget situation, we've got some older guys who are going to be free agents, possibly this offseason or within the next few years, including Johnny Cueto, and he's going to be the first guy we trade away today. Cueto was signed to a 1-year deal in the offseason. I hope he'd be able to provide a veteran presence to the rotation, and he did exactly that. I think he's been a good mentor for the young guys. He's played well throughout the season, and I think we can get some value for him. I really like what he's been able to provide us this year. He's going to go to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who already just traded for Lucas Giolito days ago. They're going to add another arm to the rotation. It seems like they're trying to grab a wild card spot. With Cueto being 37 years old, we're not going to get a big-time return for him, but third baseman Davison De Los Santos, a 19-year-old from the Dominican Republic, is an intriguing prospect. He is a sub-600 OPS in AAA, so he's probably going to start with us in AA. Garrett Cooper is a guy who I think we could get quite a bit for. He is having an awesome season offensively, and with us drafting a first baseman in the top 10 with Woody Landry, obviously Garrett Cooper is not our long-term first baseman. With how he is playing this year, career high in homers, career high in RBIs, hitting over 300, 850 OPS, his value will probably be never higher than this, and I think we could get some really good value for him. So I wanted to get an outfield prospect, preferably a guy with B potential. I think it's a little bit harder to find B potential prospects this year, and the Chicago Cubs make a lot of sense to me because they're in the National League wild card race, and while most teams usually have 1 to 2 B potential outfield prospects, the Cubs have like 5. Nelson Velasquez, Alexander Canario, Brennan Davis, Pete Crow Armstrong, and Kevin Alcantara are all really good outfield prospects, and they don't need all 5 of these guys So I think it'd be reasonable to ask for a guy like Kevin Alcantara. He's not one of their really good outfield prospects. I think that honor goes to Pete Crow Armstrong and Brennan Davis. But Alcantara still really intrigues me. He's having a good year in AAA, 6'6", 188 pounds. He's got the physical tools to be really, really good, and I don't think he's that far off from the big leagues. We know Alcantara pretty well. He was in the farm system during our Guardians franchise last year, so I'm excited to have him back. Tanner Scott will also be in this deal. I think his value is at its highest as well with having a sub-3 ERA. And we're going to be getting another outfielder, Jordan Nwogu, 2463 C potential in the deal as well. So I think this is the biggest trade we've made by far of this series so far. Garrett Cooper's having an all-star level season, and we're getting a guy who could be our long-term center fielder with Kevin Alcantara. I think he can be a big-time building block for this team. With trading away Tanner Scott, I wanted to search through the player vault to try to find a reliever. It doesn't really have to be a lefty because we already have multiple lefties still in the bullpen, but I wanted to find somebody reasonably young who had good walks per nine and good hits per nine. And Jonathan Loaizaga for the Yankees really checks off all those boxes. He's been pretty disappointing this year after he was pretty disappointing last year as well. So because of that, I think the Yankees would be willing to trade him away. We're going to be giving them Daniel Castano, who I think is actually a pretty good asset. He could be a guy who's a solid lefty lawn reliever for you. Good production in the majors in the past. He's playing pretty well in AAA. So I didn't want to do the deal straight up. I wanted to get a little bit more. So we're also going to be swapping Andrew Nardi in exchange for Beater. Not a literal Beater in Domingo Germán, but Clayton Beater. He's a 24-year-old, 67 C potential starting pitching prospect. He's been pretty bad in AAA, so we'll probably have him start in AA. But it doesn't hurt to add another young arm to the farm system. So those are going to be our 3 trade deadline moves, and I'm pretty happy with what we did. We added to the bullpen with Jonathan Loaizaga, trying to resurrect his career, and we made the farm system better with De Los Santos, Nwogu, and of course Kevin Alcantara, who I think instantly becomes our best position player prospect, not including our draft picks. Devin Smelter will come back to the big leagues along with Jordan Groshans, now that we have some roster spots that we have to fill after trading away 3 big leaguers and only getting 1 back. So the team looks a little bit different. On paper, this lineup looks quite bad at the moment, and you got to keep in mind Jazz Chisholm is going to be back in a few days. Abisail Garcia will be back eventually as well from his injury too. Braxton Garrett will slide into the rotation. He'll be the number 5 starter for the rest of the year. And then the bullpen, we add Loaizaga, but we lose Tanner Scott. Dylan Floro is a player who I thought about trading. He is a free agent, but I couldn't really find a deal I liked for him. So I figured I would rather just keep him, maybe try to bring him back in the offseason, maybe not. So before we get any further here within this series against Philadelphia and leading up to the final couple months of the year, it's time to take a look at our draft picks. We have obviously been hyping these guys up for a little while, and now I think it's time to reveal. We have to simulate the next few days before we can do that, however, so we're going to kick off the first couple of games of this series against the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to simulate through August 1st. That's the deadline to sign your draft picks, as Jazz Chisholm is now officially back from his injury. That's fun. So after a month and a half, he will return to the lineup and hopefully provide our offense a spark. Especially with Garrett Cooper gone, we don't really have any great offensive players. I know that Nick Fortes was an all-star, but is he great? No. So having Jazz Chisholm back is certainly going to be a big deal. He was obviously playing very well before his injury. Probably would have been an all-star. I was originally planning on sending down Luis Matos, but he's actually been playing pretty well recently, so I want to keep him up. And instead, Charles LeBlanc will be going down to AAA. He was playing well. Now, not so much. So he'll return to the minor leagues. Maybe he'll come back up in September. Not really sure yet. So now that we've simulated to August 2nd, this is the day where we can see our draft picks. We did win the first couple of games against the Phillies. Trevor Rogers, 8-inning shutout. That's cool. But now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's take a look at our guys. How good are our draft picks in our very first draft of the series? Let's stop the anticipation and the wait, and let's take a look in 3, 2, I'm going to make you wait, 1. All right, here we go. Bang! Look at this. So Woody Landry, our first round pick, looks awesome. 93 potential. He's a 69 overall. So in terms of the potential range and ratings range we got for him, he certainly is on the high end of that. He looks like an awesome offensive player and a guy who isn't that far off from being a big leaguer. I would say his MLB ETA is no later than early 2025. Maybe he needs a year in the minors, but not much more. He looks sick. Joel Beltran was our second rounder. His ratings range and potential was very small because he's 22 years old and we had him fully scouted. So we kind of knew he would be in this range. He's a 64 with 85 potential. His power ratings are already really good. So once he develops, those power numbers are going to be in like the 80s and 90s. Plate skills and contact do have to improve though. Robbie Jones, he does have A potential. That's really exciting to see. I thought he was probably going to have B potential. So again, his potential certainly ended up on the high range of what we could have expected. And assuming Yuri Perez is a big leaguer within the next year or so, it's going to be nice to have another A potential arm in the minors. Dominic Sierra is very raw. He's only a 55 overall, but he does have B potential. He's got a long ways to go, but I think he can reach his potential. Cameron Norman, about what we expected, 64 overall, 80 potential, so another B potential arm in the rotation. We knew the floor with him was very high. Derek Chavis in round 5, not great, but it is the 5th round. There's not really much more you can expect. 53 overall with 76 potential. And then Fernando Cortez is a 60 with 79 potential. A lot of people wanted us to draft Cortez 2 or 3 rounds before we did. So I think while we made the right selection by drafting him in the 6th round, we also made the right choice by prioritizing guys like Sierra and Norman ahead of him. But overall, really, really good draft class for sure. Let's take a look at the other draft classes around the league, see if there are any guys that we missed on or if that we were right about for passing on. The Mets added a couple solid arms, but nothing special. Same with the Phillies. They didn't really add anybody of note. The Nationals, however, got a generational talent with Justin Kramer, the number 2 overall pick. Our scouts weren't that high on him. I think they had him as the 9th ranked player for the team. So we knew like he was a good prospect, but we certainly did not see this coming. And now he is in our division. Maybe that's why they traded away Elijah Green, because they knew they were getting a total stud with Justin Kramer. We looked at Emil Vasquez as well, along with Luis Colon. Colon actually looks pretty good. Maybe we should have picked him. The Braves had an awesome draft with 4 B potential guys, including Carlos Miranda, who we kind of liked. The Cubs got Carlos Vasquez in the 1st round. He ends up being pretty good. Carlton Gonzalez, a starting pitching prospect to the Reds. Darren Russell, he was the guy we wanted with our competitive balance pick, and he ended up going in the 1st round, and he looks pretty good. Ray Parsons, the number 1 overall pick, looks quite solid. It looks like the Pirates made a mistake by passing on Justin Kramer, but Parsons looks pretty good too. I said during the draft preview, if we had the number 1 pick, we would have picked Ray Parsons. So I was wrong too to think that Parsons was better than Kramer, but both of them look good nonetheless. The Cardinals got a good reliever with Greg Gaucho. Look at the D-backs, 2 94s, including Rusty West, a player who we had really liked. He ended up going in the 2nd round, which was a little earlier than we expected, and he looks quite good. Heath Emerson to the Rockies, we liked him a lot. I thought he'd be better than a 63, to be honest. Eldridge Leon, we liked him. He ends up being an 89 potential. Martin Carr, we also looked at. The Giants drafted a pitcher we liked, Christopher Rice, but as you can see, he's not on their list. They did not end up signing him. Keep in mind, Rice was 18 years old. He was a high school prospect, so that means he's going to be entering the college ranks and will be in a draft class in the future, which is interesting. J.J. Diggs and Manuel Cairo both look pretty good going to the Orioles. Brian Ball's a guy we didn't even scout. I wasn't really intrigued by his skill set, but I think I was wrong. He looks quite good. The Yankees have a solid draft. The Rays continue to find talent because they're the Rays. Look at Adrian Leone. He is awful. 54 overall, 72 potential. This is really interesting because he was projected to be a top 3 pick. We did not scout him at all, but our team said he was the best prospect in this draft. He fell all the way to our pick at number 10, and we actually thought about picking him, so we dodged a bullet by passing on him, and this is why you do your due diligence on the top prospects. Somebody could fall, and they could end up being really bad, and that almost happened to us. Luckily, we stood our ground and picked Woody, but wow, I am shocked that he is that bad. Borton Williams, on the other hand, is really good. He might be the 2nd best prospect in the draft, period. And then Gustavo Armas was the White Sox 2nd rounder. If you remember, we almost drafted him, but we ended up going with Robbie Jones instead. Armas looks pretty good. His rating and his potential is a little bit worse than Jones, so I think we made the right call, but he looks like a good prospect too. Look at Cleveland's draft. Paul Holder and Richard Saldana, both 19 years old with A potential. They got multiple Bs as well. They had a really good draft, as did Detroit. Ramon Ojeda, the number 3 overall pick, looks quite good. Herbert Kent looks like a nice prospect, as does Hank Ponce. The Royals did not do so well. They drafted Tadahito Suzuki, number 8 overall. That felt like a total reach. He was projected in the 40s, and our team had him ranked in the 70s. Ray Castro was the Twins pick. He didn't pass his physical, but it seems like he's going to be a fine player. The Astros had a solid draft, adding some more arms. Christian Lawrence ends up being pretty disappointing. I thought he'd be a little better than that, but he does look like a good contact hitter. William Rosales to the Athletics. He's a 73, but he only has 76 potential. He's not going to get much better. But they did find Henry McMahon late. We did like him. And then look at the Mariners draft. They had 2 mid-rounders with 8 potential, including Dave Carlson, a 98 potential starting pitcher. I didn't know who this guy was until I saw his name scrolling through all these teams. Most of the really good pitchers in this draft class were from the East or international regions. So that's where we focused our scouting on, and he just kind of slipped through the cracks. They also got Mickey Shell. We kind of liked him. And then Steve Phillips, as good as advertised, to the Texas Rangers in the first round. And that brings it back to us. We definitely had one of the best draft classes. Woody Landry and Robbie Jones both look like they could be future stars. Joel Beltran's going to be really good as well. So overall, I'm quite happy with this. We hit on our top pick. We hit on our late round picks. So overall, I think we've got a really good farm system now with the guys we already had in the organization going into the series. We've added guys like Kevin Alcantara, amongst others. And now we have an amazing draft class with a potential high-end starter and a potential high-end bat. So now let's focus on our next game here against the Philadelphia Phillies. Jazz Chisholm's first game back in the lineup. And I'm really excited to pitch with Edward Cabrera because he's been very good as of recent. So now we're going to hop into this game here at home against the Phillies. It's the third game of a 4-game series, and we've already won the first 2. So we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. We can lock in the series win today. This is Jazz Chisholm's first game back in like a month and a half. He is in the lineup. He will be the designated hitter. We don't want to give him too much on his plate, so he's not going to be playing defense today. Interestingly, the Phillies actually inquired about a potential Johnny Cueto deal. Obviously, we sent him to Arizona instead, but clearly the Phillies are going for it. Here's Edward Cabrera getting the start for the Marlins. He's been very good as of late. 3.85 ERA, 1.40 whip. It's good to see him pitching well this year as one of our cornerstones within the rotation. Alec Bohm thought he draws a walk, but he doesn't get the call, and he goes down looking instead. Bryce Harper up now for the Phillies. The 3-2, he strikes out on the curveball. Good start for Edward Cabrera as he punches out 2 and retires the side. Taijuan Walker is getting the start today for the Phillies, the big free agent signing from the rival Mets. So far, so good in his first year with the Phils. 3.25 ERA, 1.35 whip. Can't really ask much more from your number 4 starter as he continues to produce. We'll see what he can do against this Marlins lineup today. Luis Arraez leads things off, and he leads it off strong as he hits a single into center field. So the Marlins get a base runner here to start the day, trying to set the tone on offense and get things going quickly. That'll bring up Brian De La Cruz. He's performed well against righties this year as he rips that one to third. Bohm deflects it off his glove, but he's unable to catch it, and everybody is safe. So now there's 2 runners aboard here, and the Marlins have the great opportunity to score here in the first inning. That'll bring up Jazz Chisholm, his first at-bat in over a month. He was playing very well before the injury, but he does go down looking on the outside splitter for the first out of the inning. 2 away now for Jesus Sanchez. He hits this one high and pretty deep in right field. Back at the track, at the wall, it is gone. That one didn't look like it was going to go that far, but it ends up going to the second deck. Sanchez with his 12th home run of the year. It's a 3-run shot, and the Marlins are on the board first. Jesus Sanchez, since he came back from his injury around a month ago, he's been really good. He looks like a different player from the first couple of the months of the year to now. He has been significantly better, which is great to see. Nick Fortes, the first-time All-Star, keeping the offense going as this one is hit off the wall in left center field for a double. Fortes is in scoring position. The Marlins are looking for more. They already have 3 on the board, but they're going to try to add some here. So that'll bring up Jorge Soler, the big-time power bat looking to strike, and he sure does! Jorge Soler with a bat toss and a bomb into left field, showing off that Soler power. And it's now 5-0, a 2-run missile, 431 feet off the bat of Jorge Soler, his 6th home run of the year. The Marlins off to an offensive explosion here in the first as it's 5-0. Let's go top 2. Kyle Schwarber goes down looking. Another strikeout for Edward Cabrera, his 3rd of the game. Runner on first now for Nick Castellanos. He goes down chasing the slider. A filthy pitch by Cabrera, who looks dominant so far, and he's going to get Rhys Hoskins to check swing on the sinker. Cabrera has struck out 5 batters so far. He is on a roll through the first couple of innings, and hopefully he can keep it going for Miami. Bottom 2, the Marlins would start with the top of the order after batting around in the first, as Brian De La Cruz hits this one well into left field. That one looks like it could go for extra bases. De La Cruz with his second hit of the game. It is a double, and with one away, the Marlins have the runner in scoring position, and from there, the Phillies will make a pitching change. Taijuan Walker's day is done after just an inning and a third. Sometimes it's not your day, and today was not Taijuan Walker's day. The Marlins hit the ball excellently off of him. 5 runs so far and 7 hits with just 11 batters faced. And Nick Nelson, the long reliever, will come into the game to replace him. Nelson hasn't been very good this year. 5.86 ERA. He's obviously got some damage control to do now as he faces off against Keston Hiura with 2 away, full count, and a runner on third. Pitch on its way, and Hiura check swings. I don't think he went around, but that pitch was a strike, and thus the inning is over. The Marlins don't score anybody, but they still lead it 5-0. Into the third, we'll see if Cabrera can keep his strong start going as he strikes out Brandon Nimmo, a 6th K of the day. That'll bring up the veteran second baseman Josh Harrison, who's been bouncing around recently, still a productive player, and he will single into center. So the Phillies get a base runner as they try to put themselves on the board. We know the top of this lineup is deadly with a bunch of big-time bats. Trey Turner, the speedster, draws a walk. So now there's 2 on. That'll bring up Alec Bohm, who strikes out on the slider. So Cabrera's just got to get this last out. The problem is it's Bryce Harper. He draws a walk. Cabrera didn't want to give Harper a good pitch, and now the bases are loaded for Kyle Schwarber. The 1-2. Schwarber hits this one weakly into left, and it is going to drop. De La Cruz should have made a better angle on that ball, and the Phillies scored 2. Brian De La Cruz defensively this year has been pretty bad, and, well, it showed there. That'll bring up JT Realmuto. Gets that one to a rise, but he's unable to get rid of it quickly. So Realmuto is safe at first, the former Marlin catcher. Now the bases are loaded, and a full count here for Nick Castellanos. Thankfully, there's no children's hospitals burning nearby. Otherwise, that would have gone out of the park. But instead, it's a 2-run single. That should have been an out. Cabrera should have made a play. One of the middle infielders should have made a play. The Marlins' defense is letting their pitcher down. But Cabrera hasn't done himself any favors as he walks Hoskins. The bases are loaded again for Brandon Nimmo, who flies out to center. Sanchez will make the play. So the Phillies leave him loaded, but they score 4. Poor defense, poor pitching, poor everything in that inning for the Marlins as Philadelphia is going to make it a ball game. Bottom 3, Jesus Sanchez leads it off, and he will single into left field. Sanchez had the big homer back in the first inning. Now he's 2 for 2 today, continuing to swing the bat at a high level. That'll bring up Nick Fortes, who bloops this one into center. Sanchez assumes it's going to be caught, so he's not running to second. It's not caught, so Sanchez has to get there quickly, and he is safe because Brandon Nimmo completely misses the throw. That's one way to get a hit, but I suppose it works. That'll bring up Jorge Soler. He draws a walk. So the Marlins had the bases loaded in the same inning where the Phillies had them loaded 3 separate times. The Marlins have really struggled this year with the bases loaded, as with one away, Xavier Edwards grounds it to first. Perfect opportunity for a double play, but Hoskins misses the throw. 1 run scores, a second will join. Jorge Soler is out at third, so the Phillies get 1 out. But instead of turning 2 and ending the inning, they allowed 2 to score off of a throwing error by Rhys Hoskins. He should have tagged first base before throwing it. I don't know why he got rid of the ball so quickly. So there's 2 away, runner on second for Luis Arraez, who hits this one well into center. That'll go for a base hit. Edwards scores, and it's now 8-4. It should be 5-4, if not for the error. That's the difference of 3 runs being scored, and the Marlins taking advantage of their opportunity. Brian De La Cruz is up next. He's already 2 for 2 today, looking to add a 3rd hit, and I think he will. This one is crushed into left field. It will stay in the ballpark, but it 1 hops off the wall for a double. So now there's 2 runners in scoring position. A huge opportunity for Jazz Chisholm, who's been like the one guy on this offense tonight who hasn't done anything. He's got a big opportunity to make his mark in his first game back. Chisholm hits this one well into center, but Brandon Marsh will make the play. That might be the weirdest inning, top to bottom, I've ever seen in my life. 7 total runs scored, 4 by the Phillies, 3 by the Marlins. That was eventful. Let's put it that way, as it's now 8-4 going into the fourth. Cabrera is at damn near 100 pitches, but he's still in the game, as with one away, Trey Turner singles into center. I think the Marlins were hoping for one more inning out of Cabrera, but with him allowing another base runner, I think it's time to just pull the plug. Steven Okert will come into the game. Cabrera looked so good early on, too, and then that third inning just ended up being a disaster for him. Turner looking to steal second. He is safe, so the speedster is now in scoring position. Let's go to the following batter now. Turner looks to steal third, but this time he's out of there. Nick Fortes guns him down, and the Phillies are held off the board here in the fourth. Let's go bottom four. Keston Hiura, one of the only other guys for the Marlins who's done nothing offensively tonight. He now has a hat trick. 3 strikeouts in his first 3 at-bats today. Not great. You know who has been great? Jesus Sanchez. He has 2 hits, and he's going to add a third one right here into the left center gap. That one will likely go for extra bases. Sanchez is aboard on second. So through 4 innings, Sanchez has a homer, a single, and a double. He is a triple shy of the cycle and will probably have 2 more at-bats to do it. So it's not likely, but he's got himself an opportunity. Connor Brogdon will come in out of the bullpen to replace the previous reliever, Nick Nelson. He'll face off against Jorge Soler with 2 away and Sanchez on second base. Soler checks his swing for strike 3 as the game remains 8-4. A much more normal 4th inning, I would say, compared to that 3rd. Into the 5th, Bryce Harper leads it off with a weak dribbler to 3rd, and he is safe at 1st. Good hustle by Harper. It's an infield single, and the Phillies have a runner aboard to start the inning. We'll see if they can drive him in, as that'll bring up Nick Castellanos. Still no children's hospitals burning, but Luis Arias is burning fire on defense. He makes an awesome play, and that'll wrap up the inning. Good play by Arias to prevent him from a base hit. Let's go top 6 now. JT Chargois is into the game for the Marlins. 3.47 ERA. He was really bad to start the year. It's been great to see him pitching a lot better. Brandon Nimmo grounds it to second. Arias with another nice play, and then Keston Hiura is out here doing the splits. Good defense by the Marlins. Bottom 6, Gregory Soto, the lefty, is in for the Phillies. A 2-time All-Star with Detroit. He was traded in the offseason for a couple of position players, Matt Vierling and Nick Maton. And Soto's been pretty disappointing out of the bullpen this year, although he was very inconsistent in Detroit, and I know that all too well. Brian De La Cruz strikes out. Let's go top 7. Jonathan Loaisiga making his 2nd appearance as a Marlin. His first one went pretty solid. He didn't allow a run, so that's really all you can ask for. Alec Bohm leads off the inning. He hits this one well into left center. De La Cruz and Sanchez not sure who should get that ball because both of them are pretty much the same distance away. De La Cruz eventually gets to it, but not before Alec Bohm gets a double. So the Phillies have the runner in scoring position as they look to make this game a little bit closer. Bryce Harper rips this one up the middle. That should be able to score Bohm. And the Phillies are going to look to make a comeback. Good throw by Sanchez, but it is a little bit offline, and it is now 5-8. Kyle Schwarber up next for the Phils. He goes down on the slurve for the first out of the inning. Loaisiga would make it through the rest of the 7th with no problem. Matt Strahm, the lefty, is now in for the Phillies. 4.87 ERA as he faces off against Jesus Sanchez to start the inning. He's a triple shy of the cycle. I thought he'd get 2 at-bats, but he might only get 1 more. Facing off against a fellow lefty. Count is full, and he draws a walk. I don't blame Strahm. I wouldn't want to throw to Jesus Sanchez either. He reaches base for a 4th time today, but unfortunately not a triple. We'll see if he gets another opportunity for the cycle or not. That'll bring up Nick Fortes now, 2 for 3 today, swings at absolute garbage, and grounds into a double play. So Sanchez reaching base is all for naught as the Phillies turn 2. Into the 8th now, the lefty, A.J. Puck, is in for the Marlins. 4.45 ERA. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't exactly lived up to expectations either. Rhys Hoskins starts the inning off with a blast in a left field. A grown man swing from Rhys Hoskins, his 19th homer of the year. And the Phillies bring it within 2. That'll bring up Trey Turner now. He strikes out on the circle change. The Phillies have scored 1 in each of the last 2 innings. They're going to need at least 2 more in the 9th to keep the game alive, assuming Andrew Bellotti, who is an ERA at about 8, doesn't allow anything here in the bottom of the 8th inning. Bellotti's gotten through the inning so far so good as he faces off against Luis Arias, who hits this one pretty well into right field, but it will be caught. Ever since the 3rd inning, the Marlins have had 2 base runners. A Jesus Sanchez double and a Jesus Sanchez walk. 2 base runners in 5 innings is unacceptable. Dylan Floro will come into the game to get the save, 29 of 33 in save ops this season as he starts with Bryce Harper, who has 2 hits today, looking to add a third, and he will. Harper hits this one into the gap, and with that, the Phillies are going to have a really good opportunity to do some damage. The tying run is up at the plate. The Phillies have a lot of big-time power hitters in this range, including Kyle Schwarber, who's up next. Schwarber singles into right field. Harper should be able to score. The throw from Soler is a good one, but he was a little bit slow to get the ball out. So it's an RBI single for Schwarber. Tying run on base. Potential go-ahead run is at the plate. It's JT Realmuto. He's going to ground out to first. Schwarber was already going for second, so the Marlins can't really turn 2. So now there's 2 away, but the tying run is in scoring position for Nick Castellanos. The 1-2 pitch from Floro. This one is lined into right, and Soler makes the play, and the Marlins win a fun one. 8-7, your final. Good win here for the Fish. The offense was so good through the first 3 innings of this game. We had 8 runs, 11 hits. We got lucky off of the error, and if not for that error by Hoskins, we probably would not have won the game. But we had the 2 home runs early, and we continued to produce into the third, but after that, the offense fell apart other than Jesus Sanchez. Sanchez reached base twice after the 3rd inning. Nobody else reached at all after the 3rd inning, which is just kind of crazy. We had no hits after the 4th, so credit to the Phillies bullpen, who normally the Phillies bullpen is the one losing games after good starts, but Taijuan Walker did not start off well at all. The Phillies gave a good rally, runs in each of the final 3 innings, but they were unable to finish off the comeback. It was a little too late. Edward Cabrera did not have his best start. He was great through the first 2 innings, and then that 3rd inning was just ugly. Really good to see Jesus Sanchez play well, 3 for 3, also drew a walk, triple shy of the cycle. I've been loving his progression throughout the year. He started off miserably and has completely flipped the switch, and his OPS rised by like 30. Rised isn't a word. I know it's rose. I should have just said Rose to begin with. All right, let's simulate through this Yankees series now. We are going to be playing the Rangers, the Reds, and the Yankees. Look at all these teams we play in August. We have a really tough schedule, so we probably aren't going to win a lot of games. We did fine during our stretch of simming. We beat the Phillies, so we swept them. We won 1 against Texas, 2 against the Reds. Shout out Sandy with a complete game shutout. And then we got swept by the Yankees. So we're 58-61 now. Still out of place for a playoff spot. And, well, we have the Astros, Dodgers, and Padres coming up, and the Rays. So not an easy schedule up front here. We're going to get through the late portion of August and the early part of September in the next episode. Let me know what you thought at the trade deadline, along with our draft pick reveals down below in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.